Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, How to Calculate ROI from Social. I'm really excited about this one. Personally, it's a huge talking point with all of my clients. So I'm going to rush through. We've made this 30 minutes so that it's bite-sized and easy. I'll break this up into a quick intro of 5 minutes. We'll talk about why social is important for 5 minutes. And then let's really talk through some different social ROI use cases. And there's an opportunity to ask questions at the end. My name is Robin Leonard. If you want to follow me on Instagram or Twitter, I always tweet about these events, Robin_AFD. Great, so a quick background for those that don't know me. My name is Robin Leonard, CEO and co-founder of AF Digital. So my background before starting the business was really, I was a customer service agent at Vodafone. I rose the ranks to become a business analyst there and worked on a really large regional CRM implementation. It was 5 years long and $500 million. And through that and projects after that, I got a lot of CRM and business intelligence experience. I later became an IBM Agile project manager, which led me to the Philippines, where I co-founded AF Digital. We started off as a digital agency, but really just adopted Salesforce Marketing Cloud technology, and we run a kind of marketing practice using that tech. But through that, we've spent the last 6 years helping large companies adopt social at scale using the latest technology, and we're talking early adopters. So it's been a pretty wild ride. So AF Digital, we're your trusted customer experience partner. We help our clients build smarter customer journeys through agile transformation, scalable marketing operations, and marketing technology consultant. We're a gold consulting partner, and we're a cross-cloud partner as well. So you can come to us for any of your Salesforce needs. We're trusted by household brands across APAC. So we've actually got offices in Philippines, Singapore, and Sydney, which covers ANZ. And we've worked with, a lot of really large household brands. As I mentioned before, these guys are all early adopters with the Salesforce platform. And that allowed us to kind of get early access to them and work with them on some of the latest leading edge projects in APAC. And a lot of these projects were social projects as well. Social has been a huge part of our DNA as a business. And for example, this is one of our clients that we work with at the moment. We've worked with Qantas for about 2 years now over that. And we run their social advertising and content and email in Asia. So we do campaigns for them. And on average, for every $1 they spend, we give them $50 in return flight bookings. So we're actually seeing real ROI. It's tangible. It's measured through the Facebook pixel. It's getting really cool. So ROI is very close to my heart because that's the thing I get asked a lot about when people are exploring buying technology to support it. They go, well, what's the ROI of social? Or when they're looking to staff a team. So I'm going to talk about Australia. Obviously, I've got some callers in from around the world today. So I know that you all have your own stats. If I can direct you to the We Are Social reports, they have these big digital reports. That's where this came from. And this one actually shows Australia is the leading country for daily active Facebook users versus total users. So it shows that Australians are just really active. 7 out of 10 Australians use Facebook, and that's been climbing steadily. 2 million new active social users since 2016. So I have to check the latest stat on that. And it's becoming really an important touch point for brands. 54% of Australians prefer to contact brands via social. And I'm pretty sure everyone that's on this call doesn't need to be convinced of this because you are on this call. Here's another great stat. This is from a Salesforce, I think, state of service report. Percentage of customers who are extremely or very likely to switch brands if they receive inconsistent levels of service or if they receive inconsistent experiences wherever they engage. So that's 73% for consumer, 78% for business. So you can see here, it's like about 7 out of 10. Right? 7 out of 10 customers are going to switch if they have an inconsistent experience with your brand. So there's obviously, right? The numbers speak for themselves. Social response times, and this is also an expectation from customers, is that 53% of customers expect you to respond within 1 hour, 65% within 2 hours. And you've got very clever companies like KLM who actually put their response time on their Twitter image and update it every 5 minutes. Because it's really important. And obviously social impacts the entire organization. SMB, obviously you've got a few less departments, but you still have to do the same thing, right? There's marketing, service, sales are the obvious ones. There's technology to support it and scale it and integrate it. There's risk, how do you manage crisis and PR? There's HR, how do you manage your staff on social and what they say about you? Insights, obviously you rely on insights and data as your business. Are you pulling in social data as part of that? And obviously your C-suite that drives the adoption, the change in your business, the transformation, they also have to lead the way as well on social. So, okay, that's just getting that out of the way. We know social is really important. So how do we start to measure the ROI? And you have to look at what a CEO wants, because the CEO is really the decision maker. And he's really looking for either more revenue or to reduce costs. He doesn't want anything else. Like there's no other investment decision except to achieve one of those two facts. You also have to go back to how we currently measure traditional advertising. So there's kind of this mismatch where everyone's like, well, where's the ROI of social? But no one's asking where the ROI of your TVC is. I know that's an old argument, but it's still really true. So, but we can still learn something from them. So they measure it through an increase in sales around the time of a campaign. So if they run a big ATL campaign, it's around the time for the 3-month period after that campaign. Or they track it via a voucher or coupon or a unique call to action when they can track the result. So those are not bad methods of tracking ROI. This is just how they did it. These are the tools they had available. So I just want to talk about how we measure it in a digital world. And part of it is a little bit kind of logical, and the other part is discrete. So what I'd usually, I guess the point of this slide is, it's about assigning a value to something. So if I've got a new lead that's been generated, how can I assign a value to it so I can calculate the ROI of that lead, at that time? Obviously, you can look back at your lead source after a sale's been made, but you also want to just have a target for, say, lead generation, but assign a value to that, and that's how you can kind of estimate some ROI flowing through. So it's all about value assignment. This is a very basic explanation of how you would measure social ROI at a very high level. So you set a goal. So you say, I want to generate 1,000 leads from social. You set your goal value. And this is what I was talking about. One lead equals $10 of value. So that's your assumption, is you're like, okay, I think that's worth $10,000 of value. So 1,000 leads would be worth $10,000 of value. How we get to that assumption, I'll give you an example later. So then we track expenses, so the ad spend, manpower, tools, etc. We track our goals, so how do we actually perform against that? And then we calculate the ROI, and then it's the same ROI calculation that you'd have for any other situation. This isn't social media related. Return minus expense divided by expense. So if your return is 10,000, so we'd set that lead value at 10,000 or $1,000 or $10 per lead, and we've got 1,000 leads. So we've got $10,000 return value minus $4,000 in our expenses for everything. So that's, if you think about that as just a number, that's $6,000. So it's like, I made 10K, it cost me 4K, I've got 6K left, right? It's just business. And then we divide that by the expense. And that's the ROI calculation. So 6K divided by 4K, 6K divided by 4K, I need to get the calculator out, but it's 150% is the answer. So, so we made 150% return. We actually ended up with $6,000 profit. Based on our $4,000 investment, that's 1.5 times, so 150,000. And that's how you calculate ROI. It's very straightforward. So you're really looking at what's your return, like how do you measure your return, which is your goal value, and then what your costs are. Great. So, and there's a lot of different methods of measuring ROI. And they're just different structures and frameworks, and you've just got a lot of options. And I think people get a bit bewildered by all the options. This is how I like to simplify it a bit. So I like to break it down to 4 kind of groups. So what's the value of social sentiment? What's the value of social customer service? What's the value of social selling? And what's the value of social advertising? I'm going to go into each of these in detail. So in terms of sentiment, there was a study done, I've talked about this a lot, a study done by McKinsey in 2008 that correlates social media sentiment to revenue. And so you can actually, and there's very real examples of this, you can look at the sentiment of Trump versus Hillary, Trump versus Kim Jong-un. We've done studies before with like box office sales correlated to social media sentiment. There's just so much evidence, and it's kind of hard to say what the cause is. Is the cause of, say, that box office hit the social media sentiment, or is it the box office hit that just naturally has a great impact on society? So it's very hard to kind of say which is, first or after. So the other thing as well is there's value in people talking about you positively. And you can attribute a value to what you would pay an influencer to talk about your brand. So say if I was to pay a model girl, probably not Kim Kardashian, the market rate is $10 per 1,000 followers per post. So that's what you would generally pay. It's pretty widely known. Obviously, the rates differ depending on who the people are and who you're paying it through and your particular agreement with that influencer. But this is just widely publicized on, say, Google. So we can attribute a value to that. And this is where there's kind of a word of mouth ROI calculation. So if you were to pay an influencer to mention you, and it got that many kind of people viewing your brand, what is that worth to you? And so here's an example calculation. So we've got 10,000 organic brand mentions per month. These are our assumptions. Average person has 200 followers. So that's our target. 10,000 times 200 is 2 million followers reached per month. So if that's what we're kind of looking to achieve, and this is off the average person. So an average person has 200 followers. We're not talking about influencers. So I guess where I'm going to is we're not using influencers. We're using people to talk about our brand. It's kind of natural word of mouth, share of voice, positive sentiment. That's our objective here. So if we were to relate those 10,000 organic brand mentions per month, if we relate that to what we pay an influencer to do the same, have the same effect for us, it's $10 per post per 1,000 followers. So it's actually 1 cent per follower reached. Right, so if it's 1 cent per follower reached, if we have 10,000 organic brand mentions per month, and we multiply that to 1 cent, we multiply that to 200 followers. So we've got 2 million followers reached per month. If we have 10,000 organic brand mentions per month, we end up with a value of $20,000 per month. So I know that's, I didn't explain that very well. So you've got 10,000 organic brand mentions per month. So if I'm Malaysia Airlines and people are talking about my brand online and not in a negative way, each one of those mentions, if we assume they have an average of 200 followers, then you can assume that about 2 million people were reached as part of that 10,000 organic brand mentions. And so using our paid influencer value comparison, we can then say it's $20,000 per month in value from those 10,000 people. So, and that's really interesting. So what drives organic brand mentions, you ask? right? So, and it's funny because a lot of things drive it. So you can run like in-person events are a great way of driving organic brand mentions. TV commercials, dare I say it, are a great way. Like there's some TV commercials that just go wild and become really catchy. Although that is not my advice. Please don't put your budget there. You can do like viral marketing. You can create content and be part of the conversation that is relevant to your brand. For example, Anlene Milk, which is a powdered milk brand in Asia, they will get involved in, mothers' conversations and health conversations that are relevant to them. Through the conversation, they gain brand mentions and people talking about them. So that's kind of how to encourage that. But this is a really unusual calculation. Out of all of the calculations we're about to go through, this is the weirdest one because we're using this comparison to paid influencers to attribute a value to brand mentions on social. And it's really just tying the dots because we know that there's value. We just don't know how to measure it. Okay, social customer service. Let's talk about that really quickly. So there's a few reasons why social customer service is a really cost-effective solution. According to the research, social agents are able to handle 4 to 8 times more issues per hour than phone agents. And it's really because they are not tied into the call. They don't have to say like the welcome message and the goodbye message, can I help you with anything else? It all eats up their time. They can only deal with one person. So it's way more efficient. Preemptive SCS, reaching out. So you can actually sense when someone's got a problem with your brand if they say something negative about you and preemptively address it. And that has a huge result, although we're not super calculating that. And on average, they say social customer service costs 1/6 of the cost of phone interactions. 1/3 to 1/5. So there's a magic number that's being used. This is a US number, I warn you. So it's a little bit different, but you can kind of apply it. If you can figure out what your cost per voice call is and your cost per email is, and you've got the volume on the cases for social, it's very easy to figure out what the cost per social case is. But what they say is that it's $5 for social, $10 for email, and $15 for voice, which is astounding if you ask me. Okay, great. So, and here's a really quick example of a social customer service ROI calculation. So you've got a voice call, $15 to handle. You've got a social case is $5 to handle. You currently receive 5,000 voice calls per month. So it's $75,000 per month to run that customer service channel for voice. What if we could deflect 20% to social? So 1,000 of those cases, they go away from voice and they go into social. What we know is that social is $5 per call or per case. So that cost is actually $5,000 per month to handle those 1,000 calls. With the remaining 4,000 calls, we've got $60,000 per month to run that voice contact center. So if you add those two together, it's $65,000. So instead of being $75,000, it's now $65,000. So you've got a saving of $10,000 per month. I mean, obviously, you've still got to run your business and you've still got overheads, but you're looking to transfer as much into a lower cost channel as you can. Another really great idea is to have self-service channels like a community where people can log in and ask questions to other members of the community or access knowledge articles. That's a really great way to save money as well. But this is how you calculate it. This is how you justify having a team of people really focused on social. This is how you justify having marketing campaigns that drive people to social and say, guys, we now support you 24/7 on social media. Come to us, we're here. And honestly, the support's often a lot easier there because often you just have to share a link to a help article and problem resolved. So anyway, I highly encourage that. Okay, let's talk about this next one, which I'm also really excited about. So this is social lead generation. And this is, it's talked about for like, I don't know, 15 years. Ever since social first came out, people have been talking about this, but in reality, it's a bit of a touchy subject. People don't like to be sold to on social. You see that on LinkedIn a lot. It's super gross. But there is a smart way of doing it, and this is really what I believe is the best approach. And so, in this example, I'm just going to talk through a traveler. And so, in this case, I'm a brand that is trying to sell to a traveler, and I'll talk through that in a bit. But when I look at my customer, I know that they go on trips. And they go through this process. It's a life cycle, and marketers know about life cycles. It's no different to that. So this traveler, they dream about the travel, they plan the travel, they book the travel, they prepare for it. All the way through, they're talking on social media, they're sharing their thoughts, emotions, their feelings. 30 days until India, 2017, already started packing. Like you can feel the anticipation. They depart, they explore, they return, and they reminisce. And they do all of those things on social media quite often. So if I'm a brand, and in this case, the example brand here is TripADeal. I've got no commercial association with TripADeal. They're just a really great brand. They offer trips. So this is an example of how they could interact with that customer as they're going through that journey on social. So I really want to go back to New Zealand for a holiday, and they could reach out and say, New Zealanders, aces, where have you spent most of your time there? Check out this trip plan, because they sell trip plans, right? So that's a really great selling opportunity. You've got an indication that someone's looking to plan a trip. They're planning a trip. So this woman's spending her Sunday binge watching Netflix and planning her holiday. And so we just start the conversation. We're not trying to be salesy, right? So then we go into book. At that point, if they've already shared their booking, we've already lost that trip opportunity for this brand. But that's fine, because we just keep helping them anyway, right? We want to be friends. We want them to think about us when they're next booking their trip. So as they go, they prepare for it. We send them like useful blogs and vlogs. As they're departing, maybe they have an issue at the airport, we empathize with them. So I don't have time to go through everything, but you get the picture about how you social sell, how you relate to them. Ideally, if you've qualified this person, you'd bring this person to your CRM and capture a lead. And that's really where you assign the value. So going back to the goal part at the start that I was talking about. So this is how you figure out what a value of a lead is that you haven't sold anything to yet. So what you do know based on your existing business data is, well, what you should know is what your average customer lifetime spend is. So for TripADeal, we can assume that it's approximately $1,000. The average trip is maybe $600. I'm not actually sure of the numbers. Let's say it's $600, and maybe they've booked a trip and a half on average. So, about $1,000. What we know from historical data is that for the leads they've got that are qualified inquiries, they have a 2% conversion ratio, right? So you can then say, okay, well, that means that in order to get enough leads, I need to increase my lead volume, right? So so then we can say the value of lead, 2% of $1,000. So only 2% of one deal will go through, which is $20. So we assign a lead value of $20 to that one lead. Obviously, you need to set some parameters around what is a qualified lead for you, and what that money attribute is. But you get the picture that you can get to a number that is based on your historical lead conversion and your lifetime spend. So let's assume that we've got someone sitting on social and listening in for anyone that's traveling, which there's a bucket load of them. There's like millions of them, right? Assuming they're an addressable market. We get that person, they've got a target per day of qualified leads that they need to generate in the CRM. And let's say they can do 1,000 leads per month. That's worth $20,000 per month in new revenue. So, which is, I mean, it's pretty cool. That's assuming that your calculation is correct, of course. And obviously, these are all just examples, but you get the picture of how you can start to think about the value of stuff. And then throw that into a 12-month, and it's suddenly $250,000 of value that you've unlocked, of new revenue that you've never seen before through social. So it's pretty exciting, like for me. And no one's doing this either. There's a lot of different tactics you can use to integrate customer journeys and social advertising. Here's one example. This is using Salesforce, where you have an existing customer database. You throw them into a lookalike audience through Salesforce Advertising Studio, which goes into an ad. That then, we run the ad, we get a lead, a new lead comes in from that lookalike, and that goes into another lookalike. So we're actually always generating new lookalikes and advertising to them based on the leads that get generated. So these are like semi-qualified leads. So, and then we go into thank you and do a journey, enrich the data, send them SMS, like it gets really awesome once you start integrating these channels into your journeys. And this is really where you see the ROI. I'm almost out of time. I think I'm almost there. So social advertising, we use the same calculation method as we did before with lead valuing, right? Average lifetime spend, average lead conversion rate, ratio, percentage, and then we value the lead. Let's say we generate 1,000 leads per month from Facebook lead ads, which is an excellent way to generate leads at the moment. You can also assign a value there, $20,000 per month. Not that much different to social selling, except this social advertising, there's obviously a lot less, there's less overhead and manpower to run it, but there's obviously other costs of advertising spend. And these examples, I haven't really focused on the cost to implement too much because I didn't want to confuse the calculation. Already you can see I'm having a hard time explaining it. One thing that I'd really recommend to any customers that are seeking ROI is to make an investment in visualizing the information, and that's a command center. It seems like there's not really a direct correlation between having it visualized and ROI, but your business will adopt the technology which you pay heaps of money for anyway, assuming you've invested in some social media technology. And that also, I don't mean for this to be too Salesforce-y actually, but Salesforce has a really great command center that does integrate everything together, so you can visualize all of your business data. And it's really like, it just unlocks everything and makes sure that you get value from the platforms. If your email campaigns aren't running, you'll see it. If your social's getting hate, you'll see it. So highly encourage that. And just another tip around just auditing yourself, and this is how I like to do it. I kind of break it down to community, publishing, engagement, listening, and acquisition as kind of categories. And then I look at all of my customer touch points that are online, and you can just be like happy, okay, or sad. It's a really great way of just doing a visual audit on one page. People get bogged down with like, what is a digital strategy, and all of that stuff. But speaking of, if you do want something a bit more technical, this is more for large organizations. We actually do have a social media maturity assessment and framework that helps us identify where your strengths and weaknesses are as an organization. And we can help you build a vision. Using that as a framework, we can then start to map out the next 3 years to get your organization to a place where social is being used as effectively and efficiently as the telephone. Great. All right. Q&A. Any questions? Okay, I don't have any questions. I hope everyone was able to hear my presentation well. Great. All right. Well, that's all I have then. I really appreciate your attention, and see you next time.